Sam Comenti here with another Know Your Candidates. Today I'm with Marcus Partin. He's the final candidate I should say, because Michael Dequisto is also running. I have yet to meet with Michael, but he's obviously on council currently. Final candidate of 9 that I'm meeting with. Marcus, thanks for the time.
You bet.
Appreciate it. We're at your work office here, correct, off Cypress?
Yes.
And so let's start right with the first question. The easiest question you'll get is tell me about Marcus Partin, your background, what you do, and your connection with Reading.
Good. Myself and wife have lived here over 20 years. I've had a business here over 20 years also. I've been a business owner for over 40 years. And owning your own business and primarily involved in real estate acquisitions, larger type acquisitions, dispositions, entitlements, things like that, of some of which I've done with the city here. So the business background gives me kind of a unique perspective on how contracts and business runs, especially as it deals with real estate and real property, which has come up lately a lot in the city.
Right.
Here in Reading, we've been involved in the community, both in our homeowners association, Elks. I'm on the board for the Colt 45s. And then from a civic standpoint, I've had 3 different city appointments over the last decade. Primarily the most prominent would be as a commissioner and vice chairman of the Reading Electric Utility Commission, okay. Which gave a unique insight to the operation of this city-owned utility that we have.
About what you think the biggest positive is, the biggest positive, the best thing you see that's going for Reading right now as we speak.
You see some signs of some new growth in the buildings downtown and the courthouse and new developments, whether they be south where the Costco development is or across the street, new commercial developments that have happened in our area, which are a good sign of economic growth. California is plagued somewhat because it's almost an anti-growth environment in some ways, so it makes things more difficult as towns go to grow. But I think from the standpoint of somebody looking at Reading right now, they see that from a building standpoint, from the economy, maybe we're starting to move in the right direction.
And then with that, with growth, there's always some sort of pitfalls to that or things that come out of that. But in general, what would you say the biggest weakness, the thing that's holding Reading back right now is?
Well, certainly I think the issue of, it ties into a little bit to homelessness and crime, cause a problem because as people look at relocating to an area like Reading, or businesses look at locating to Reading, or great example, medical professionals, which we dearly need in this area. We try to attract those people in. That's one of the key considerations of how a city looks, what the crime levels are, and not that it's not impacting other areas of the state and other cities, but we can do better than we're doing right now, I think.
There, like I was just saying in the beginning, there are 9 candidates running for these possibly three open seats because Michael Dequisto is running for re-election. That's a lot of people. A lot of people running to work in this building right here behind us, Reading City Hall. I wanted to know your thoughts on that, and then potentially what your connections or how you know some of these other candidates and what those relationships look like.
Sure. Lot of people running. I believe about 8 years ago there was a large contingent running also because I attended some of the forums. And so what's different now, we've had a number of candidate forums where there's been a lot of community involvement, which has been great to see. And sometimes you get lost in the fray because the answers, when they're whittled down, tend to be the same. We're against crime. We want economic growth. We need housing. We need these things. And I think that's a general consensus. So I think the one thing that differentiates me from some of the other candidates is having gone through the processes. For example, from a real estate entitlement standpoint, some people don't really understand what that means, but that's your zoning, your use permit. Sometimes it's traffic studies and tree studies and everything that it gets to get a use permit to be able to build and move forward in the city. They haven't been through that process, and so they've heard from others the frustrations, but having lived it is another thing. Same thing with affordable housing. I was involved with a project over this last year. It's going to be Loudon Senior Housing, and which will go vertical probably this next 30 days. 61 units, total 96 units when it's done. But going through that entire process, I think differentiates me as well. So I think it's the experience on the Electric Utility Commission. Very complicated utility we have, and having that time of background on how that's run to keep rates down, to utilize it to attract businesses to the area, I think is the real key difference. Enthusiasm and confidence is great in this election, and I've seen it. But when I go to hire somebody, it would be experience would be one of the factors.
Right, and you are, I believe, just pulling this off the top of my head, but I'm pretty confident that you are the oldest of the candidates that are running, and with that, obviously,
boy, that's really good to hear.
I had to point that out because everyone I've met with is a very young. I'm not trying to insult you, Marcus, of course, but it's like their first time in civic type of responsibility pursuing that. But as you said, you have experience in that. You've done that before. That definitely does differentiate you because a lot of these other candidates can't say they've done any of this.
Well, and I think if you look at
I
that
don't know
background,
how old you are, but I just
you keep bringing that up. So it would be interesting to see what they've done from a civic standpoint in the last 10 years, and that's where I think the experience is lacking.
Right.
I think there's some good ideas
Sure.
that they have, and it's exciting, but there's also some traditions and there's some things that we hold dear to us, for those of us that have been here a while, and we want them to get that as well.
Right. Now, talking about, you kind of alluded to this as well, some of the land deals and things that the council have had to discuss in recent months, actually this year, the civic land deal and other things that frustrated a lot of people, alienated a lot of people. There's a lot of residents, community members who were frustrated with how things were handled, specifically talking about the civic land deal, the areas, the Civic Auditorium, near the river, near the sundial. I want to know your thoughts on that as someone that has a background in management, things like that. Talk about what you think of a deal like that and what it could do or how it could hurt Reading.
Well, I am in favor of well thought out, planned development. That being said, I know that there's 3 of the candidates, their position, where they supported a sale of that property. Unfortunately, under the Surplus Land Act, that could open it up to low-income housing in an area. And I don't know, something that came to mind just because it's football season.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking you have the Green Bay Packers have over 500,000 shareholders. Well, I guess we have to think of it as we own that property as citizens of Reading. That is a gem that we have. And so going on an outright sale where we don't have a plan to develop that out or have it turn into something that wasn't its highest and best use, I don't think I'd be in favor for. And yet, like I said, I know some of the candidates were in favor of that, an existing council person in favor of that supports those candidates. Personally, I'm against that sale. That being said, we have a lot of waterfront that may be developed here, and it's a tremendous asset. I don't think that we necessarily need to hold up for 2 to 3 years all the development of all the waterfront if there's some quality development interest looking at taking a portion of it or doing individual developments now. I've seen plans in the past that take the Oasis specific plan, 20 years ago, that was going to be 3.3 million square feet of commercial and 2,183 units surrounding the mile at the Oasis interchange. A lot of improvements took place, but you didn't see the development happen. So it was kind of a kicking the can down the road.
Sure.
Where, I think that if we have responsible quality development that the city approves, that should be approved. But as to the rodeo grounds and the Civic Center, no, I was opposed to a surplus land sale.
Do you happen to be a stakeholder in the Green Bay Packers by chance?
No, but
Always thought about doing it.
I have a friend that is, and the teams, my wife and I support Green Bay's one of them because of the connection with Chico and
Right, and Aaron
quarterback
Rodgers.
Brett, and Aaron.
So I'm just today, seeing some of your, we can imagine that the City Hall is up there, some of your campaign signs. I had not seen them. I don't know if you had just recently put them out, but now I'm starting to see them put out there. And I wanted to know, as I was reading it, I was driving by it and I saw it, do you have a campaign message, slogan, something you're kind of leaning on in this campaign as we get near November?
It's interesting because I've never run for public office.
Sure.
And, I didn't, in my civic work that I've done over the past decade, there was no plan to run for office. I just saw an opportunity. And so all this is new to me in the campaign business. And I actually came into it a bit late. I know some people have been campaigning since last year.
Yeah.
But I felt both a need, and if there was a catch line
Sure.
that I looked at once, it was focused solutions. I think we're doing a lot of things right, but I also have seen the areas where we could utilize improvement.
Now, if you were to get on council, you would have 2 new people potentially joining council with you, and then obviously 2 retained. So a question I've been asking people recently, as we get closer and now the picture's more clear as to how many people are running, what it's looking like, is I'm curious how you would go into the situation with the mindset that I'm working essentially with 4 new people, but 2 that are also new to the job and 2 that have been doing this for a couple years. What would be your approach? What would be the first thing you do in your first council meeting, sitting on the board with this new look city council? How would you approach that situation?
But a consensus is important.
Right.
And so a little bit ajar from what you said. I may not be with 2 new people because one is going for re-election, Michael Dequisto.
Right.
And so from that standpoint, we've.
How do you know Dequisto? Have you known Dequisto previously?
I supported him in his previous campaign,
Okay.
And I think he's in it for the right reasons, and so that's he has my vote this time as well.
Okay.
Simply because I've seen what he does. He analyzes the issues. He gets in-depth questions answered. So many times in the staff reports, as an example, are 300, 400,000 pages long for a meeting, and to be able to grasp and understand the mechanics of that, and not just look at what's being recommended to approve, I think it's important to have that perspective. I just come back from the state of the tribe.
Oh yeah.
And that property
Yeah.
transaction was
Oh yeah, the one that was very controversial as well.
very
So
controversial.
let's talk about that as you were just mentioning.
It was
Your
brought.
thoughts on it.
It was brought up at the State of the Tribe. Interesting because, both some of the people that were voted to sell that property were there at the meeting, and it was brought up as an issue. Certainly, what was done was wrong. It violated the Surplus Lands Act along with a couple of other laws, and it's been settled now through court. I actually read the judge's opinion on it. I just thought it was interesting what had transpired, and I didn't want to just look at what people told me. I wanted to look at the facts, and so with that, the relationship with the tribe is an important one. They're a partner in the community. They're heavily involved in the community, and we have to work to repair that relationship and that trust. As to that sale, now it's been reversed. It's done. So as to the casino expansion, that's the Bureau of Indian Affairs, but. I think that the city has some responsibility to work in good faith with them, and I'm glad that chapter's over and we can move on.
Well, let me ask you, this will be my one, hard-hitting question for you, now that you...
How old am I?
The question I was going to ask you, because you mentioned that you are going to vote for Dequisto and that you think a lot alike with Michael. An analytical thinker. That's been the feedback I've gotten the most about Michael. Someone that thinks things through. The one thing I will say about Michael, and I'll talk to him about it when I see him, if I get a chance to interview him, is a lot of people grow frustrated because he evaluates everything, thinks everything through, but a lot of times doesn't push things forward, doesn't approve something. He's usually the one kind of holding things back because he wants to review it more. The job of council, some would argue, is you want to keep pushing things forward. You want to make sure things evolve, that we get better. So I want to ask you your idea on that as someone that could potentially take a council seat. You want to be thoughtful and analyze everything, but I would imagine you don't want that to restrain you from approving something that could really benefit Reading or might be kind of a roll of the dice.
My wife told me something very funny yesterday. She read a quote that the road is filled with flat squirrels that couldn't make a decision.
Okay.
And it goes along the point of when I mentioned the length of studies and going back and studying for things for a long period of time, and then not taking advantage maybe of an opportunity that's there right now. As you talked about Michael Dequisto, you need to get a consensus as far as moving things forward. And although we don't always agree, we see a lot of things the same. And the analogy I used was, I've been married for 21 years, and we don't always agree, but we see a certain, we find a common ground that seems to work. And so I think, you have to get that consensus within the council, and sometimes that requires negotiation and work and compromise.
There's going to be a lot to be decided by council in the months ahead and the years ahead. And with the current state of the council as it is, with the people on the board, there has been, like I said earlier, there's been controversy, there's been decisions that might have gone a little off the rails or things that frustrated people. So this is me throwing out my personal opinion for 2 seconds, even though I'm not really supposed to do that. But I think a huge thing for the council when it eventually settles, whoever is on the board, is to kind of stabilize, right? Get things level, push ahead. So how do you plan to do that? What do you think can be done going forward to make sure the issues that have kind of been plaguing council recently are left behind?
I think transparency. Transparency is really the key. I've not only attended a lot of council meetings, but I've given a lot of public testimony on different issues and projects that I've been involved. And you want that up front. One of the things that I've seen in the past with other candidates is I've attended a lot of council meetings. I will tell you, it's my belief that a lot of those decisions are made in advance of those council meetings. And I hope that as we become more transparent, if elected, we're going to be in a position where the public is more open about what they're saying and recognize what's being accomplished.
Well, thank you again for meeting me. This is the quickest I was ever able to organize an interview, where literally the day of I get to sit down and meet with you. I love that. Plot me right into your schedule. So November 8th, less than a month away. We're almost at Election Day. It's going to come fast. So tell me about what you have coming up. If there's any events, any things that you want people to know where they can get a chance to meet you in person or ask you questions or anything like that.
Sure. We'll be at Candidates in the Park this weekend.
Oh, yep.
That's from 2 to 5 p.m.
Is that Saturday or Sunday?
That is on Sunday. This Sunday. So that's one. We've had a couple of good fundraisers, but we're looking to get out the vote more. I don't have the campaign structure that a lot of people do, and yet I've met a lot of people with the different organizations we've been involved in, and we're trying to get out the word. So assistance in one, getting the word out, getting the vote out. I guess the message that I would have. We have a website now, marcuspartin.com.
That's an easy one to remember.
Yeah, that's just coming out. Just look at the sign and then remember the name. And we have yard signs available. Anybody can call 223-3500. We'll get you a yard sign. And get out there and vote. And I would appreciate the support and would honor the vote.
Awesome. And as you were just telling me before I started playing here, you're a runner. You run marathons and you're training for that right now. So people might see you run by their door.
You know, I may be the only candidate that's actually running.
Yeah.
But
physically running.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the mileage up. I'm doing, actually, I had a goal of getting in 200 miles in the last 2 months before the election hits.
Okay.
And
Holy
so
hell.
there's a running T-shirt. So you'll see if it's not me, it's somebody else. That we have a few running T-shirts out there. But getting that in, so I'm in pretty good health, I'd have to say. And I may take this one a little bit slower than previous, but it's the 50th anniversary of Honolulu Marathon, and it should be a kick. Just if nothing else, get that shirt that says Hawaii 5-0.
I like it. Any final message you want to say to potential voters other than just to get your vote?
Appreciate the support. Go to marcuspartin.com and get out there November 8th.